Each episode is a trip. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today, we're counting down our picks for the top 20 most entertaining Joe Rogan Experience guests. For this list, we'll be looking at the most interesting people to come on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. We're not necessarily saying that we agree with all of their opinions, but their interviews make for seriously entertaining viewing. Number 20, Steve-O.
Claustrophobic, man. It was cramped in a tiny little... I get claustrophobic, dude. I didn't like that.
As to be expected, Steve-O is an unflinching guest, open about all of the crazy experiences of his life, at least what he remembers. The Jackass star has talked about his travels, his drug use, and the time he spent in a psych ward. Given everything that has happened to Steve-O and what he's put himself through, it's a wonder he isn't dead.
That if you do enough drugs, like the barriers between these different compartments of the universe become eroded somehow.
For those who dismiss Steve-O as just an empty-headed buffoon, his appearances on the JRE give him a chance to show another side of him, such as his story of how he was able to score good seats at a Motley Crue concert for free at the age of 13 by problem solving.
He goes, I'm so impressed by what you did. He says, how would you like it if I put you on the list for backstage passes and I can give you tickets in the 5th row?
Number 19, Ben Shapiro.
Conservatives like me who are libertarian-leaning are constantly accused of being non-compassionate. No, it's just our compassionate solutions don't involve the use of government.
A well-known mind on the conservative side of American politics, Ben Shapiro prides himself on being rational, putting facts before feelings, which Rogan himself has considered refreshing.
But now Facebook has deemed itself the morality police, and they'll ban people they don't like, and they'll decide what editorially ought to be elevated and what ought not to be elevated.
While Rogan and Shapiro have their differences on social issues, they've been able to discuss them in a civil manner, whether the topic is gay marriage or marijuana legalization. With sharp analysis and a quick tongue, Shapiro outlines problems he has with today's left wing and presents arguments as to why their positions are flawed. If you're gonna debate him, you're gonna have to come prepared.
But when it comes to government, and when it comes to me imposing my views on you, I am way less of a top-down tyrant than any of the people in Silicon Valley.
Number 18, Kevin Smith.
He goes, but you're a comic book guy, right? I said, yeah. And he goes, you'll like this. That artery, that's called the Widowmaker. And I said, why? And he goes, because in 80% of cases of 100% occlusion, the patient always dies.
Given the type of dialogue found in Kevin Smith's films and the topics he covers at public events, it's not hard to see how he's a perfect fit for this podcast. He's funny, and he brings up interesting subjects that he and Joe can ruminate upon. He's also not afraid to open up on personal subjects, such as his near-fatal heart attack and a painful episode where he had to have a pet dog put down.
It's such a weird relationship where one day you're like, I love you to death, and I love you so much I kill you.
He's down to earth and relatable, making his appearances excellent listening for anyone who's got a couple of hours to kill.
And when your life is in danger, I've never been in that situation, but when your life is in danger, nobody gives a about your ego and shit like your vanity.
Number 17, Jay Leno.
So no, I never thought about going to do it again. I did it for 22 years. You know, it was number one when I got it. It was number one when I left. That was perfect for me.
When the former Tonight Show host came on, Rogan got a chance to talk about the craft of comedy with one of the giants. Leno talked about the good old days of stand-up comedy and how he first got started in Boston when there was no such thing as a comedy club. He also brought up run-ins he had with the mob when he performed at nightclubs and working with strippers.
So I'm teasing my wife, and I just kind of whispered her. I didn't think the guys could hear me. I said, you know, and if I go into the city tonight, I think I'm going to need a piece. And this guy goes, oh, Mr. Leno, please. He takes a gun out. He throws it in the bag. He goes, please, take that one. I said, no, I was really kidding.
Leno was affable throughout as he told his old stories. And of course, there was a little bit of car talk.
And I thought, oh, it was the first time in my life I had used comedy, and it got me something. I got an A. I never got an A.
Number 16, Paul Stamets.
We're now involved in a massive extinction event.
Mycology, or the study of fungus, may not immediately jump out as an interesting field to study. But after listening to Paul Stamets, you'll want to crack open a biology textbook and learn everything you can about the subject. The way he talks about the subject will change the way you think of fungus and the world.
Let me describe it this way, that we separated from fungi 650 million years ago.
Maybe you did, dude. I know some people that are probably still.
Stamets brings up fascinating facts about fungi, such as humanity's having been descended from fungi and its various uses. And of course, because this is a Joe Rogan podcast, they also talk about drugs. Naturally. Number 15, Bill Burr.
Like a lot of that so-called progressives extreme left is think the way we think, say what we say, or we will destroy you.
For anyone who's seen this comedian perform stand-up or go on Conan, you know he's not afraid to say what's on his mind, whether it's offensive or outlandish. Burr manages to be cynical about the world around him, but doesn't take things too seriously.
And yet it's burned into my head.
His dick.
I could pick his junk out of a lineup.
He often brushes off heavy subjects with casual indifference, and deconstructs ideas in a way that make people see them in a new, interesting light. It's always entertaining to watch him go off on a rant, even if he hasn't thought things 100% through.
Hilarious, he's a crescent kick. That's one of the rarest kicks anybody ever pulls off, ever.
It's left over from the 80s. Whatever.
Number 14, Duncan Trussell.
If you want to be a self-destructive alcoholic, drug addict, whatever it is, be that thing. But don't fool yourself into thinking that's not what you're doing.
It's romantic.
Sharing many of Joe Rogan's sensibilities, especially those related to drugs, this comedian is one of the podcast's most frequent guests. Trussell has appeared on episodes with numbers with superstitious connotations like 666 and 1313, which shows you the kind of comedian he is.
But some of them had spikes nailed into them. It was like,
So like they
were
nailed them?
vampires or something. Like,
Oh my God.
Maybe
For some of Trussell's episodes, he and Rogan get dressed up in outlandish costumes, as in episode 666, where Trussell dressed up like the Pope and Rogan was an astronaut.
just play around with losing and not, even though you know that you're right, play around with not being right. Surrender.
If you're a fan of Bill Hicks' style of comedy, this is one guest you'll want to catch. Number 13, Lance Armstrong.
The Tour de France is 100 years old, right? So doping is cheating, we know that. But there's other ways. I mean, guys would hang on to cars. Guys would get in trains.
If you think you know the whole story behind the doping scandal with Lance Armstrong, this appearance from the 7-time winner of the Tour de France might show it's more complicated. Armstrong brings up the aftermath of the scandal, including the effects on his Livestrong Foundation, and he explains things the way he sees them.
Man, I was paid to do a job, right? As messy as the job was, whatever. I was paid to do it, and I did it.
While Armstrong acknowledges that he let people down, he also makes excuses for why things happened the way they did. Upon learning about the intense backlash, Rogan was somewhat sympathetic to what Armstrong was going through, believing the hatred to be overblown.
So this was something that was
ill-advised.
Yeah, it seems right now, right?
Number 12, David Goggins.
You know, you're not supposed to have a hole in your heart and be a SEAL. And
Were you born with it?
I was born with it.
A retired Navy SEAL and ultramarathon runner, David Goggins is an inspiration for anyone who wants to change their station in life. On Rogan's podcast, Goggins has told his life story, like how he was at one time a 300-pound man working as a bug sprayer, but through sheer determination, he was able to get himself in shape and join the Navy SEALs.
But what they don't understand is they don't understand the journey that it took me to get to this point. And what got me to this point was I was just the opposite of what I am today.
His story is one full of obstacles, such as his father's abuse and his own crippling fear, and his overcoming these obstacles by not giving up.
I want to open this damn door and get the hell out of here, man.
Number 11, Randall Carlson.
But how many do you think were wiped out? Half of them? 3/4 of them?
I don't think that would be unrealistic. No.
For anyone who's interested in the history of ancient civilizations or major geological events, Randall Carlson is one guest to listen to. According to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Carlson is a master builder, architectural designer, teacher, geometrist, and renegade scholar, among many other things. And when he goes on the podcast, he covers a wide range of subjects from asteroids to floods to ice ages that will blow your mind.
You know, there was no Great Lakes because the Great Lakes were under thousands of feet of ice.
Bringing out charts and graphs, he's laid out data supporting catastrophic events that have shaped the Earth and human history.
Were those events to occur today, 10,000 years from now, archaeologists would be sifting through the rubble looking for any kind of evidence that we had ever been here.
Number 10, Leah Remini.
They brought me into another secured room because they have to get somebody who knows this information. And they said, never, ever say this, never confirm it, never deny it, never give that information out ever. Just never discuss it.
Ever since she left the Church of Scientology in 2013, this King of Queens actress has been a vocal critic of the organization. During her appearance in January 2017, Leah Remini dished on her experiences in the church, growing up practicing Scientology, and how it affected her.
And so, yes, you start to feel very important. You start to feel that you're powerful. These are not bad things to make kids feel, but this is the way cults work.
Remini also talked about her attempts to be a devout member and how she wrote up reports on Tom Cruise because she thought he wasn't setting a good example as a Scientologist.
So
At your
Tom
expense.
essentially has servants.
Correct.
How many people?
A lot.
If you've ever been curious about Scientology, this is a good episode to watch. Number 9, Graham Hancock.
Most archaeologists have responded by saying this is impossible. It can't be so. But that's precisely what they said to Jacques Cinq-Mars, who said that humans were in Bluefish Caves in the Yukon 25,000 years ago.
Perhaps best known for his book Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock is a journalist who challenges conventional views of scientists and historians on past events and ancient civilizations, and deconstructs why he believes they're wrong.
Actually, one of the things I've done in this book is look at what the Egyptological case rests on, and it's a fairy tale.
Then he offers his own theories of what could possibly be real. Listeners of the podcast are in for a treat when Hancock appears with Randall Carlson, and the two come together to discuss their ideas, such as how lost civilizations could have been wiped out by a cataclysmic event.
Ooh, that gives me goosebumps. A single afternoon, all over the world, everything changes forever.
Number 8, Jordan Peterson.
First thing to say about that is that's impossible. And the reason it's impossible is because there's no limit to the number of ways that you can categorize people into groups.
This clinical psychologist and University of Toronto professor is popular with the right. Peterson is critical of left-wing academia, particularly college professors and students' fixation on Marxism, which he sees as a corrupting, if not dangerous, ideology.
How in the world you can speak of oppression if you happen to be at Yale is beyond me.
He's appeared on the podcast with Brett Weinstein, a former professor from Evergreen State University who is also critical of the SJW culture found on college campuses. His central philosophy is that people should stop feeling sorry for themselves because of their identities and take personal responsibility, which will lead to happiness and success, which is somehow more engaging than it sounds.
There's something extraordinarily dangerous about having people revert to identification with their racial identity. It's really not a good thing.
Number 7, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
You can look up the dictionary definition of atheist, and it kind of applies to me, but what is the definition of atheist in practice? It is what leading atheists do.
Nobody likes a show-off, unless that show-off is Neil deGrasse Tyson. The astrophysicist rattles off knowledge in all sorts of areas, including math, science, and history, and he manages to repeatedly blow Joe Rogan's mind, whether he's talking about infinity or explaining Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. If you listen long enough to Neil deGrasse Tyson, there's a good chance you'll learn something.
To see you there, because I think you're there, the photon comes in, hits your atom, and pops you into another location.
While Rogan is known for frequently having members of the intellectual dark web on his show, guests like Tyson show the true diversity of his audience.
This is the perennial two-way street of astronomy in the old days and in modern times astrophysics.
Number 6, Mike Tyson.
You get cougars, lions, tigers. I know this guy got excited. I said, you do? Can you get me some tigers?
An eccentric personality, stories to tell, open about drug use, Mike Tyson checks off all the boxes as the perfect guest for the Joe Rogan Experience. On his appearance on the 1227th episode in January 2019, Mike Tyson brought up stories such as how he got his tigers and once gave a guy a Rolls Royce to avoid getting arrested.
And it was the guy with a broken arm. I said, sir, why don't you just take the car? You deserve it because you've been doing a lot. Because I didn't want to get arrested. I didn't have a license or anything. Right. And I didn't want my wife to get in trouble. I said, why don't you just take it?
He also told about how his mom gave him alcohol and marijuana as a child to make him go to sleep and tried cocaine and LSD before he was a teenager. Yet Tyson says he's never had a cup of coffee in his life. Go figure.
Once I did, I wanted to do it again and again and again. And they said, you shouldn't do it too much, Mike. But I was like, man, I got to grasp what's going on here. Why am I feeling this? Like, why did this, in a weird way, humbled you?
Number 5, Alex Jones.
I've known you 20 years, or since 1998, 99. I genuinely really am trying to find the truth.
Fittingly enough, Alex Jones made his first appearance on the podcast for the episode number 911. It turns out that Joe Rogan and Jones have a friendship that goes all the way back to the late 90s. And of course, the whole episode was chock full of conspiracy theories, ranging from pedophilia rings to NASA cover-ups.
I mean, here's the deal. The Oxycontin company, the documents came out, said we're going to totally addict people and then we're going to sell them drugs to get off of it.
Yes.
That's pure freaking evil.
Yes.
So lock
Pure
their
evil.
ass up and then we'll get to Kevin Trudeau later.
For those who think that Alex Jones must be high to believe all these conspiracies, Rogan did admit they were both high during the taping. Jones has made a return appearance on episode number 1255 to discuss the hardships he's faced as of late, such as Sandy Hook fallout and being deplatformed from social media websites.
They have designated me as an international terrorist, and that's how they took 5 of my 6 bank accounts and got me down to 1 bank account.
Number 4, Theo Vaughn.
I find that the moon, say we went to the moon seemed like something Delta could get to if you really think about it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Delta Airlines?
Yeah, like if they...
Not Southwest though, right?
I mean...
They seem a little shaky.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit shaky on there. Some of the people on there are wearing shorts.
A frequent guest on the podcast, Theo Vaughn is a comedian with a laid-back personality. But even for a comedian, he has strange views, such as feeling the need to plan out who he'd want to eat in the event of a plane crash if he were to resort to cannibalism. And he drops jokes right out of nowhere when it looks like he's being serious.
Yeah, I miss the old days, man, sometimes. You know, I'm not like one of those naysayers that believes that the future isn't going to happen. But I surely miss the old days. I miss old diseases. I miss old...
Since Theo Vaughn has such a random sense of humor, Rogan takes the opportunity when he's on to mull over a wide range of topics. Number 3, Elon Musk.
So we know that's the end point. We know that. So why run this crazy experiment where we take trillions of tons of carbon from underground and put it in the atmosphere and oceans?
This tech entrepreneur and billionaire CEO is the most high-profile guest Joe Rogan has had on so far, making an appearance in September 2018. Musk had a dry sense of humor as he brought up nerdy science topics. One topic that Musk brought up was his concerns on artificial intelligence and its implications.
And then we're building progressively greater intelligence, and the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence.
Musk believed the industry needed regulations, an idea he tried to press on then-President Barack Obama and Congress. However, what probably got the most attention in the news from Musk's appearance was him taking a puff from a joint on camera. Number 2, Eddie Bravo.
So one day you're going to do it like Daddy. Look how Daddy does it. I'm not even looking at my shoes. Look. And I do it and I go boom. And he's like, I go, look at that. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
A jiu-jitsu instructor, music producer, and stand-up comedian, Eddie Bravo does a little of everything and throws himself into all of it with passion. When Bravo comes on Rogan's podcast, the 2 common subjects they talk about are fighting and conspiracy theories, such as the Earth being flat and false flags.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's fun to watch Bravo bring up suspicious things the government is allegedly doing, only for Rogan to push back with skepticism. When they interact, it's obvious that Rogan and Bravo have known each other for a long time and do not skip a beat.
There's an expression. There's like a code. It's not just called the code. It's like, it almost has like a...
Snitches need stitches.
Something along those lines.
Before we unveil our most compelling number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
People want to see the anger.
Yeah.
And you know,
why do you think that is?
Because it's just the times. That's what's cool now.
You see, it's not an isolated instance. It's a pattern behavior. And over time, that exposure to inconsistency builds and builds and builds until it's something that you can no longer ignore.
So I think that really highlights the importance of other lifestyle factors, other foods. You know, that's really important when we're looking at these observational studies.
You know, weighed 100 pounds, and then he would bite me, and then it would be 30, 40 stitches. That was 30-something stitches there on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
You got the vein.
Like, just think about who we were in bed with, like Saudi Arabia, selling all of our uranium to Russia. Like Trump came in and was like, no.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Joey Diaz.
Did you try anything? Did you try like melatonin or anything like that?
I did cocaine for 30 years, melatonin, I could eat 20 turkeys.
Another one of Rogan's friends who has made several appearances on the podcast throughout the years, this comedian is a fan favorite. Looking like a supporting character out of The Sopranos, Uncle Joey gives his opinions about the world with a blunt frankness.
But I remember going home, my mom going, he's talking the truth. In the house, you speak Spanish. This is America. Outside, you speak American.
He's always good for an interesting story about growing up as a Cuban American in New Jersey, the way people used to act in the old days, or just whatever strange thing that's happened to him lately. But one thing is for sure, when you tune in, you'll be interested in what he has to say next.
Look at this! This will never happen again, Joe Rogan.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.